Welcome, beautiful people, and thank you for joining us on Till the Wheels Fall Off, a podcast by two folk couple. I'm Matt.
And I'm Paige.
And we're here to inspire others, to bring you guys into our lives and tell you a little bit about our journey. Over 20 years together, we've learned a few things.
We're going to work toward being the best version of yourself possible. We're going to dig into building a positive mindset, discuss mental health, addiction recovery, improving fitness, building businesses, and insight into what it takes to navigate life today.
Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
And thank you if you are new here because of our last episode. Our last episode was a message from me to people still struggling with addiction, and I was really worried about how that would come off and how it would be received. But we heard from a lot of people that it was incredibly helpful, and that I love hearing from people that it was helpful. I haven't heard from anyone yet that was damaging, so that's great. But it's always like this fear of me. It's like we have a responsibility as creators when we put this stuff out there that something could come back that was not intended.
Yeah.
But it sounds like for all intents and purposes, this landed exactly how it should have, which is great. It's a really tough topic to cover when you're talking with someone who's in early addiction or in early sobriety or in active addiction. But me having been there before, I did my best to try to reach people where they're at, and also being firm and challenging them on some of the stuff that we would like for our partners to think is true that's really not. Mm-hmm. There will be a part 2 to that. I don't know exactly when, but we are planning that, and it deals more with the validation and accountability component. I didn't want to have everyone drinking through a fire hose with one giant episode about that.
Yeah.
So I think in 2 parts is probably more helpful. Let's tackle the most immediate stuff first, and then we'll get to some of this other stuff. Yeah. So thank you if you're new. Thank you if you responded back out with feedback. We love hearing from people. And speaking of, if you're not already in our Facebook group, we have a free Facebook community called Tufo Community. If you click on any of our social media profiles, there will be a bunch of links there. It will have the podcast. It will have our Instagram account. It'll have our website. It'll have our community. So we ask you a few simple questions. Join the community. You can post anonymously. You can't reply anonymously, which I think is kind of bogus.
It is weird.
I don't understand the point of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can post anonymously. It's a great place to process things. Sometimes you just need to vent. It's like I'm a writer. Writing's my cathartic way of just getting feelings out. Mm-hmm. And it's a way that people can just express what they're going through. Maybe not even looking for feedback. Like, I just need to put this in the world just because. I just have to get this off my chest. And sometimes people will come back, and one of the best things you can hear at times is, I'm right there with you. I'm here for you. I get it. It's an incredibly powerful thing that we've built that is not us. This is the power of the community in itself. It's just really cool to watch this thing take off and people helping each other. It's just beautiful, man. I love that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that. So if you're not already in there, please join that. And while we're here, we don't get a lot of reviews, but leave us a review. We love reading reviews, good or bad. It's awesome. But anyway, today's topic is reactive abuse. Mm-hmm. Reactive abuse. This is Paige, this was an episode that you had wanted to put out quite some time ago.
Yes.
But we have several others that we prioritize, and so this has been your baby.
Yeah, I have actually worked with some amazing people who have questioned their part of abuse when it comes to a toxic relationship, or in a relationship with an addict or alcoholic or even a narcissist. So this can go in all different...
Yeah, this hits a lot of different areas.
Yes. Yeah. So as a partner of an addict or alcoholic, do you question your part when it comes to abuse? I know I did.
And so when you say question my part, meaning were you ugly to them? Were you abusive?
Right. Was I abusive? That's the question. That's the part that I would question, like, oh my gosh, because we hear these things all the time about what abuse is. Yeah. And, did I do that? Am I an abusive person? Because I would lash out. I would yell. I would call you names. I would throw things across the room. I don't know if I ever threw things at you, but I wanted to. I know that. But I knew that all of this was out of character for me. Like, I didn't like fighting. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to lash out. But come to find out, my lashing out is something that's called reactive abuse or reactive defense.
Which is a better term for it, I think.
Yes. So I actually got that information from a website that I'll bring up in just a minute, because it had a lot of just gems in it that really
Some
helped
great
me
info there.
open my eyes to how I reacted in our relationship. And I think a lot of people that listen to us are going to relate to this. And I'm hoping that you come away with less guilt with how you feel, because I felt guilty for a lot of the times. Yes, I have a part in that, and I have, owned that part and taken accountability, but there are reasons why I reacted the way I reacted.
Absolutely there are. Yeah. Reactive abuse isn't necessarily abuse. Let's not even really call it abuse. Let's call it what it is. Self-defense. It's a defense mechanism.
Yes.
So quick analogy, because I'm an analogy fan. A kid's getting bullied on the bus every single day. He's getting stuff stolen from him. He's getting pushed down. He's getting made fun of. He's getting hit. You name it. When that kid fights back, do we call that kid an abuser?
No, but there are a lot of schools that say that there are zero tolerance rules and they get in trouble for it.
Zero tolerance rules are just an easy way to not have to look at situations. All right. I got opinions about zero
I'm
tolerance
fully aware.
policies.
I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just
it's
filling
for
in the
ease
gap.
of process. It doesn't mean it's correct. But
But no, that's true, because we teach people to stand up for yourself.
We don't call that kid the abuser.
Right.
Everyone will look at that and say he stood up for himself. He finally stood up for himself. Now, the moral question, is it right to fight back? Is it right to hit? Is it right to do anything? Philosophically, we can get into that some other time. But strictly speaking, when someone reacts in defense, we even have laws that protect those people. Mm-hmm. They're laws for self-defense.
Yeah.
When it comes to relationship, though, these things become muddy, really muddy, especially when your sanity, you're questioning your own sanity every day if you're in a relationship with an alcoholic or an addict.
Facts.
Like, am I to blame here? Was he right when he said that I'm the reason he does this? If I was less nagging, would it mean that he drinks less? Like, you question everything you do, which is part of what causes the lack of self-esteem and the lack of empowerment in these relationships. Mm-hmm. Al-Anon will call something like this codependency, which is a term that we've never loved by any means. Yeah. It still doesn't make sense to me in my mind. But anyway, this is where a lot of this stuff comes from. And this is just another vein in that same topic.
Yeah.
So walk us through situations or what is.
So according to experts, it is rare in an intimate relationship that there are two abusers. So sometimes I'll call that mutual abuse. And that's when you would think like, oh, am I abuser and he's the abuser? We're just both abusers.
We're just toxic. We're bad for each other.
Right. Not necessarily true. That's very rare. It's usually there's an abuser and a victim. And this is really confusing for us because I question myself all the time, just like you said, like, am I wrong? Am I abusive? Am I starting these unhealthy patterns of reaction?
You're a rational, empathetic person.
Am I the crazy one? So the website is themendproject.com. And reactive abuse is when a victim has been in a toxic relationship for a while and they begin defending themselves against emotionally violent attacks. So this happens like when we push, yell, rage, have angry outbursts. Throw things. Call people names. This is self-defense. It happens when we hit our breaking point. Yep. So we will hit a point where it's just like we have no choice but to react.
Yeah.
So, and it's typically out of character for us, which makes us feel really confused by our own responses. It's a defense mechanism, but it rarely saves us from the harm.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's crazy about it.
Yeah. It actually makes it worse. And we'll get into why here in a moment, but I think that anyone, like I've seen this in relationships, even when there's not alcohol or drugs, when you've just got an abusive person and it's generally the woman will say, we were just toxic together. We were bad for each other. Wow. If you really back up and look at what's happening is that you've got someone who's incredibly emotionally abusive, someone who will lash out in uncharacteristic ways, defending themselves, and then look way too hard at their part in that.
Yes.
It's not to say you shouldn't look at your part in things, right? I'm still a believer in that, but looking way too hard at it and completely disregarding the other person's, why you ended up there. Like the context matters here.
Yeah.
The context absolutely matters. And the context is generally you've been backed into a corner. You've been told you're crazy. You've been emotionally abused, sometimes physically abused. And then at some point you reach a breaking point, like Paige mentioned, and you just snap.
Yeah.
And you just snap. It's like you just start seeing red. And anything that happens after that point is an involuntary self-defense mechanism.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of the time these genuinely empathetic, caring people will, after the fact, can feel incredibly guilty and be like, man, I'm abusive. I caused that. And abusers, I can speak from an abusive standpoint. We love it when y'all do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a sick thing, but it's true. Because now it's not all on me. Now I've got you right where I want you.
Right. So because so what is abuse?
Just in general?
Yeah. What's abuse?
I would define it as an attempt to gain control over somebody.
Okay. Or to gain benefit from something.
Yeah.
Improperly.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. For sure.
Addicts typically abuse to gain their drug of choice or just to control the situation, or the relationship that they're in.
Yeah, it's controlling the situation and that person in particular so that you don't want them too close to what you're doing, because that means that they're going to tell you that's bad. You need to stop this. Addicts often call this nagging, quote unquote nagging.
Mm-hmm.
You want this person distant from that part of your life. And so you will use tactics like gaslighting, lying, cheating, diversion tactics, turning it around, stuff like this in order to do that. The more I have you concerned about yourself or something else, the more I can do what I need to do.
Right. So that's the mindset of an abuser. I didn't ever think that way.
No, why would you? Why would you?
Reactive abuse comes from the place of defense.
Yes.
So it's you're fighting back in a dangerous situation. So it's not to treat somebody poorly just to gain benefit.
No.
That's how you know that you're not the abuser in the relationship.
Yes, that's fact.
That's one part.
Here's where someone will hear that though and go, well, hang on though. As you're lashing out at someone, aren't you in some way trying to regain control over that situation, help them see, in an effort to get them to see your perspective? Like, some people think that deep about this stuff.
Well, I mean, you kind of can, but some of these things are not even, it's not voluntary.
Right. It's out of character for you.
Yeah.
Like, truly out of character. You don't throw things. You don't snap. I mean, you're loud, but you're not generally screaming curse words at me.
I'm not an abusive person.
No, you're not. Not at all. Incredibly caring, compassionate, vulnerable person. But when these things happen that are out of character, you can typically look at that and say, okay, like, I'm not trying to control anyone. This isn't a typical behavior from me. This was like a one-off where I just flew off the handle, and it happens every time XYZ happens.
Yes.
So there's a trigger for it.
Right. And so you're on high alert, and these triggers happen, and our brains actually release a stress hormone, and it's the fight, freeze, or flight response. And sometimes we respond and it is even like a shock to us more than it is you, because it's out of character. And I know that I feel like when I've responded in that way, it doesn't align with my values, and I immediately feel regret. I feel guilty. I feel as though I truly effed up and I need to make amends.
Yeah.
And this is because the reactions can happen without warning.
It just happens like pop. There it goes. And like, you don't even know what you've just done.
Yeah.
Like, think about if anyone grew up with siblings, like having an older sibling that bullies you. My older brother did this to me all the freaking time. When we were like middle school age, he would run in. Okay, we'd get off the bus at the same time. My parents weren't home. He would run inside. He would beat me off the bus, like literally off on feet, beat me into the house, lock the door, and then make me bang on the door for 10, 15 minutes or more before he let me in the house. And it was frustrating. It drove me crazy. And I was smaller than him. I was, 2 years, but year and a half younger. And there was one day where I guess I'd had a bad day at school. I don't know, but I was really hurt by everything. And when he opened that door, I don't know what happened. I snapped. Mm-hmm. And I mean, talking about an ass whipping to end all ass whippings. I mean, I lost my mind on him. Damn. And then when he was on the ground screaming, stop, 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 I like came to and I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And then he gets up and I see the look in his eyes and it's like, uh-oh. I took off running, and my mom had these old like antique chairs. I stuck a chair in between the two of us. I'm like, no, we can talk this out. Wait. His foot went right through that chair, man. And I'm like, oh, now we got bigger problems. We're both in trouble now.
Yeah.
I took off to my room, locked the door, like jumped under the covers, and he's banging on the door. But that was an instance of reactive abuse. Like, I just snapped. I couldn't tell you what happened. I wasn't like an angry kid. I wasn't a fighter. But you do it enough times to somebody and they're going to react.
It's a defense
I was
mechanism.
acting in self-defense.
Absolutely.
But you know what he told my mom?
What?
Just the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a bully. I snapped. I beat him up for no reason.
Oh, yeah. He didn't own his part.
No. So this goes way back in life. Like, it's not unique to your life right now, but there are instances like this throughout your life.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
That chair never recovered. It was glued back together and it was never the same.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I had just talked about the fight, freeze, or flight response.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to kind of share an example, like in our relationship, what I would typically do. My response to defend myself, like I said, was yelling or whatever. But there were also times when I would freeze. And it used to really irritate you because I wouldn't talk. I couldn't talk. It's like I needed to protect myself by freezing.
Yeah. 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 You tend to do that. You would freeze. You would just kind of jam up and sit there and just like,
right, because I guess because if I were to speak, it would have caused even more problems. And all
you were giving me fuel. If you were to speak, you know what I would do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I would turn it around and I would use it against you.
Yep. And then the fleeing response is when you
literally
walk away. Yeah, and I do this too. There are times when I'm just like I just walk away. I walk out of the room. Which we tell people to do a lot. If you feel like you are in a relationship or in a situation that is going to be very uncomfortable. Especially a volatile or especially dangerous one. Yes, walk away. It's okay. It's all right. But I wanted to, there was this other episode.
You would do the fight. You would fight sometimes too. You'd come at me like a spider monkey every so often.
Oh yeah. I sure did.
Like
I'll
a
admit
spider
that.
monkey.
Yeah. But let's think about now that we are in a healthy relationship where we communicate in a healthy way and like we don't have these problems anymore.
Nah.
I mean, sometimes I will when I started therapy, it was like within 2 years of my therapy, I was still having triggers. So Matt had been sober for already 7-8 years and I would still have anger outbursts. I would still have these triggers and it just happened. It's like I had no control over it and I had to learn to deal with that in therapy.
Yeah.
So I found another example online that I thought was really interesting about reactive abuse that might relate to others. So perhaps a woman reacts to years of her husband's abuse by hitting him, or she screams at him, calls him names, or slaps him. I think I've slapped you before.
Probably.
Yeah. When the police respond to the domestic violence call, her abuser will be calm and sadly tell them she assaulted him. She will admit she hit him, apologize, and try to explain. Inside, she doesn't know how to explain because she probably doesn't understand why she reacted that way. The police may see her as the abuser or one of two abusers.
Typical right there.
Rather than getting the help she needs, she will take all of the blame for reacting to months or years of physical, psychological, or sexual abuse.
Oh, man, that's tough. And as I understand it, first responders are trained to a degree to identify this type of thing, but some abusers are good. Like what I mean by good is that they're really good at manipulating and lying and putting on a show. A lot of times law enforcement are just left with it's like, listen, if there's assault and battery, we just got to take people in.
Yeah.
They don't want the liability of leaving someone there who, was, what do they say? A wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Like this guy seems fine, but if he's actually not, and we leave him here, they could be dangerous for everyone.
Yeah.
So they just take everyone in. But a lot of times this stuff gets pushed under the rug because we have this black and white view that abuse is abuse. Now, I've even said that abuse is abuse, but within the context of abuse from an addicted person, even though they have a disease, is still abuse. I firmly believe that, but I don't believe that self-defense is abuse.
Right.
Is self-defense battery sometimes? Yeah. But is it abuse? No. Abuse is, like we said, it's to gain an upper hand, to gain a form of control over somebody else. That's what abusers are ultimately trying to do. You are not trying to do that when you defend yourself, when you snap, when you've been called the B word for the 15th time that day, or called fat or ugly, or any of these incredibly hurtful things in front of other people. Eventually, everyone has a breaking point. Psychologically, we all have a breaking point.
Yep.
And when we lash back out, it breaks my heart that people feel guilty for that.
Yeah.
But that's human nature. I think that it's the nature of an empathetic, introspective person. Is they're always going to look within and be like, man, where did I screw up here? What was my part in this? And then you feel indebted to your abuser suddenly. You start to look back outward and be like, well, I must have caused these things in them. They're not all that bad because I'm just as bad. No, you're not. You're not. It's okay.
Right. So why does reactive abuse not actually help us?
What do you mean?
So whenever we react, how does
right.
it not help us? Like we feel, because it is a defense mechanism. We're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to do things to survive. Yeah. But in reality, it makes the abuse worse.
It does.
Because the abuser, they typically want their partner to feel the fire. They want to fight. They want you to become a hot mess so that they can blame you for being unstable, uncontrollable, and abusive. They'll go the lengths of, grabbing proof
Oh God.
via emails, texts, voicemails, videos, just to show how abusive you are.
Yeah. Reactive abuse generally is, shouldn't say even generally, but a lot of the time it is what the abusive person wants. And I can speak for this firsthand. Let's go back down memory lane and let's sort of, let's hop into my abusive brain, my, brain prior to years and years of therapy.
Your active addiction
hard
thing?
work. Yeah. And active addiction.
Okay.
When you would freak out, I would sit there calmly and act so shocked. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you're acting this way. But on the inside, I'm like grinning like the Cheshire cat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I got you right where I want you. Mm-hmm. Because now I know you. You were going to look at this and be like, I cannot believe I treated you that way. I can't believe I said those things to you. And I'd eat that crap up. I'm like, oh yeah, that was, I can't believe you would do that to me. Treat me that way. I would leave you feeling indebted to me so that you would leave me alone long enough so I could keep running my game. Yeah. So I could keep going and buying drugs. So I could keep neglecting the responsibilities around the home. So I could keep neglecting your emotional needs. All those things. Like, it's what the abuser typically wants is whenever you do this, they're going to use it against you. Yeah. And I've got experience with this, not from you, from other people that I've known who carry these traits. And when we're talking about this stuff, addictive abuse, this might sound very familiar to narcissistic abuse. And it's not by coincidence. These things feel the same to the victim. Uh-huh. The abusers have a lot of the same mechanisms, right? The gaslighting, the flipping things around, the manipulation tactics, all that stuff feels very, very similar. So when we're talking about these things sort of like interchangeably, I've dealt with someone who was just incredibly emotionally abusive. I would stay incredibly calm all the time and like, listen, I know this game, dude. I'm not going to give you what you want. Mm-hmm. But then they would say something incredibly hurtful or like cut really deep or go somewhere they shouldn't. And I'd snap back with an ugly email or a text message or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that person has told me to this day, they have every email and every text message that I've ever sent them where I was ugly in defense. Yeah. But that's not how it would be used against me. Right. It would be used in a way that shows like, listen, this person's unstable. They are crazy. They threaten me. They do all with no context whatsoever. They just picked out these little pieces of everything, never mentioning what they've done. And that's what abusive people will do with this. Yeah. So there is no benefit whatsoever to doing it.
God, there's so much energy that goes into that. I just can't imagine.
Oh man. If you got a person that saves text messages and emails, run. Like that is a sure sign this person is wheels off.
But I will say though, that I do tell people to write down instances that happen for you to look at, the patterns within your relationship. That's helpful for the victim. It's helpful for the victim, but it's not helpful to show for the other person and be like, look, this is what you're
not giving this to.
You're not giving them to punish them. No. It is literally for yourself. I just had to throw that in there.
No, because it is when you've been abused for a very long time. We can normalize dysfunction incredibly easy. It's almost scary. Yeah. How well we can normalize dysfunctional situations.
So true.
So we've encouraged people at times whenever we identify dysfunction, it's something that we've been through as well. It's like, oh, I've been there before. You should try writing this stuff down so you don't forget it, because it's really easy to normalize it and forget about like all the times they were coming home with the scent of perfume on them. I don't know, just as an example. Yeah. Like let's put the pieces together here and let's look at what's really going. Let's construct an actual view of what's happening. Mm-hmm. Abusive people are looking to take this out of context to use against you. Right. They're not trying to identify patterns. Right. They're literally trying to be manipulative with it. They're sick. They're sick people.
It just blows my mind.
Oh, it's frustrating, man.
So another part of where you kind of get stuck into this dynamic is that your partner, like the abuser, will tell you that you need help.
Oh yeah.
And then that'll increase our sense of self-doubt, and it makes us question our own sanity. And then when that happens, we become even more dependent on you, because we are like, oh my gosh, maybe we are wrong. Maybe our partner is right.
You've
convinced us that we're the crazy one.
And that we are your only way to salvation.
And I'm sure, so I would easily be like, okay, maybe I do need help. I need to go. But if it was turned and I would say, you need help, I guarantee you'd have been like, no, I don't need help. I'm doing fine.
You need help.
You need help. Exactly. So it's like, Oh my gosh.
Ooh, another red flag. If you've ever told someone that they're abusive and they call you the narcissist or they call you the abuser,
That's a red flag.
it's a red flag that they are exactly what you just said.
Yes.
No one gets more offensive than a narcissist who is denying something they definitely did.
Yep.
They get so defensive so quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell. Like, this next bullet point was going to be accountability.
Yeah, you know what's screwed up about what you just talked about? Whenever I would tell you, like, you need help, like, you lash out, like, your emotions have gotten too big, like, this is getting dangerous. I would say things like that to make you leave me alone. And what I didn't realize, like to be honest, I didn't know how bad this would get for you. And like I don't want to get emotional about it. It's hard for me to even think about, but I didn't know how bad this would get. I didn't know how deep the effects would go. Like in that moment, I just needed you to leave me alone. Yeah. I didn't realize how bad this would get. Like, it doesn't excuse the fact that I did it, and it shouldn't relinquish me from responsibility of it. I live with that every single day. But the really screwed up part about putting someone in that position where you've convinced them that within your relationship that they are crazy, they start to question themselves. The self-doubt creeps in, their confidence disappears, and now they are somewhat stuck with you because now they're emotionally dependent on you for validation. If this person says that I'm crazy and I believe them, they're the only ones who can tell me that I'm not crazy. So they've got you where they want you. Now you're in this cycle where you are seeking validation from a person that wants you to stay sick. Mm-hmm. Like, they feed you just enough to keep you around, and it will keep you sick for years and years and years. It's like, yes, you are damaged, and I am your only way to salvation. Only through me and through making me happy and pleasing me are you able to feel good about yourself. How sick that is. Yeah. But that's what happens here. Right. It's crazy. I'm so grateful that you found a way out, and I found a way out, and we're here today, and we're extremely lucky, but holy hell.
Well, man. I'm glad that you put that out there, because you're saying that, because all you cared about was getting your fix, right?
That was
your thing. Like, that's all. And so you didn't realize the damage that you were doing. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why we're here. That's why TUFO is here.
Yes.
Is to bring awareness out there that you getting your fix and you just getting your drug and you lying to your partner is doing a lot more damage than you ever thought.
It's not just that. Yeah. And
I'm not trying to shame anybody. This is reality.
This is what actually happens. This is the stuff that you don't realize when you're in it. And this is why, like, when I work with people in recovery, like fresh out of treatment, they're not really understanding how badly they've damaged anybody.
Yeah.
They're like, and I've even talked to people, and I think I said this early on. It's like, I didn't really hurt anybody other than myself. Mm-hmm. Like, how selfish is that, right? I only hurt myself. I was the one getting high. My liver's the one that took the hit. Like, yeah, certainly I was maybe rude to my wife sometimes, but you don't realize how subversive some of this behavior is and how badly you can F up someone's self-esteem and their self-worth and their confidence and all that stuff that goes with it, because they trust you. They believe you. They want to believe in you. Like, you've taken advantage of that. You have destroyed something so important to them. You've broken their trust in their self. Yeah. And I didn't realize I was doing that. I really didn't. And I'm pretty damn sure that no one does. Yeah. You don't realize it. You have tunnel vision over your next fix and what you want. And you'll say or do basically anything to get there without understanding, like really thinking through, okay, if I say this, what are the ramifications of it? So a lot of people, when they're freshly sober, like as we're sitting down working through stuff, I'm like, so tell me about your life. Like, what's going on? What's good? What's bad? They never talk about stuff like this, ever. I'm the one who usually brings it to their attention, but not right then. Mm-hmm. We have to get some stuff out of the way first.
Right.
And then once we get to that point where it's like, okay, so let's look at your family, let's look at your relationships, and we start to work through this stuff. And it's only then that you see like their mind just blow, like, oh my God, I never realized this. Mm-hmm. It's not an excuse. It's not a cop-out. I encourage everyone who's in recovery to own this stuff 100%. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if you didn't realize you were doing it, you did it.
Exactly.
And now you've got a partner with PTSD and self-worth issues and a problem with confidence and empowerment because of this. And you have to own that. And you have to do what you have to do to make that right within them as well. Part of it's just validating and holding yourself accountable. That is, that's the biggest uphill battle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, we don't realize we're doing it. But I was abusive in the sense that I was absolutely trying to gain control so that I could get you to act how I needed you to act, which was basically just leaving me alone.
Yeah.
Like, get off my, like, you were a detective who was kind of getting on the trail. Like, you were getting hot on the case.
Yep.
And I need you to go, like, you know, over there. Investigate that guy. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm busy over here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What's up next?
Okay. I was just, kind of the last part.
Well, PTSD's in here. It's mentioned.
Yeah.
Like the actual effects of this thing.
Yeah. I mean, it happens whenever we don't know that we're being abused most of the time, like you just said. And it's the longer the abuse happens, because our stress hormone is going to be released over and over and over again.
That thing fires up.
It's going to keep getting fired up. So we're going to react more and more, you know, that's out of character.
Yeah. And you have physical stuff that happens as well.
Yes. And like it can affect your immune system. Like you can
stress
become
is terrible
sick.
for your body.
Yes.
I was reading about this the other day. Like, the effects of stress on your long-term health and just lifespan in general. Stress is terrible. It is worse than like sugar and smoking and maybe even drinking. Like, this stuff is terrible for you.
Right.
Being in these relationships literally has effects on you.
Yeah. So how do you know for sure if you aren't the abuser? If you're asking that question and wondering it at all, that is a great sign that you are not the abuser.
If you're listening to this, chances are you're not.
Just like Matt said, when you call a narcissist and they blow up and deny
and call you a narcissist?
Then, and if you're, you know, questioning your reactions, chances are you're reacting to defend yourself. You know, most of the time the problems within this relationship are caused by the addict or alcoholic, not necessarily you. And we can say this from the other side because since you've been sober and since I have worked on my healing process, we don't have these problems anymore. We don't, like I said, I do react occasionally. I'm still 6 years into this and I still do have some moments of like outbursts, I guess you could say. But I acknowledge them immediately and I correct them and we discuss it and we move forward from it and we're both very supportive on it.
I never hold it over your head
No,
either.
you don't. And I'm extremely grateful for that. But it does linger. It lingers because I was in survival mode for so long.
Yeah. Man, and that's something, anytime someone approaches us or sends us a DM, I want people to know that this is a process. And when we say process, think years.
Yeah.
Not one conversation or a month or 90 days. Like, you can start, don't get me wrong, you can make progress in a conversation. You can make progress in 90 days. But to really look back over the course of time, this stuff takes years. You're unlearning behaviors that took years to learn. They can't be unlearned that quickly.
Yeah.
And this goes for basically every single topic that we cover. It's a process. Like, be gentle with yourself. Like, even if you realize today, in this episode, you go, oh my God, I'm in one of these relationships. I have done that before. Like, I have reacted in defense and been called an abuser. Like, I'm with a narcissist. I'm with an addict with narcissistic tendencies. Like, oh my God, like that realization in itself is going to take quite some time to sit in before you go, okay, so what do I do about it? And then it takes even longer to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
And I know it's tough when you're in it. And like, I think that it's only natural that we want solutions quickly. This is the one area of life that doesn't have many quick solutions. Like, I can come up with a quick solution for an addict for sure.
Yeah.
Lock this dude up and make sure he don't get drunk.
Right.
Like, we start to get to work and do better.
Yeah.
But the emotional stuff, it just takes time.
It does.
It takes freaking time.
It does. It's like habits. You know, you're recreating habits. You're having to shift your brain.
Like, when I work people through, like I got sober working a 12-step program. There are other ways to do this, but when I got sober, it took me like 9 months to work all 12 steps. A lot of people, it will take anywhere from six months to a year to do it. And in that course of that first year is like the most emotionally trying time you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah.
It's not like you learn that you're an addict and you stop drinking and then day 2, you're just better. You unlearn the behaviors, the reason this stuff happens. It's no different from the other side of it. So like, respect your recovery and be gentle with your recovery and acknowledge that recovery takes time. It's a process, and be gentle with yourself along the way.
And
like,
keep going though.
Yes. Don't
Even
quit.
during the hardest
it's so
times,
worth it. Keep going.
Don't just go back. And you will go back to your old habits. It's a process. It's part of it, but always acknowledge them. And that's what's going to help you move forward through them and educate yourself. You know, just keep going.
Yeah, it breaks my heart when people beat themselves up that they haven't gotten it right and that they're not better and like they
Oh
haven't.
yeah, that
It's
was
like,
me.
like I learned about detaching with love on Friday, and on Monday, like I'm mad at myself because I haven't done it yet. Man, that takes time.
Yeah.
Be gentle with yourself. It's a process.
Yes.
You have to educate yourself on this stuff. First, you have to know that it even exists.
Yeah.
You stumble across us. Okay, that exists. Wow, that's a thing. And then
Yeah.
you educate yourself, and it takes time for you to really see how it looks in your life. And then you start to make little changes. You take one step forward, two back. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
It just do not give up. Like till the wheels fall off, stay on the course. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. There's
recovery for everybody. Even if they don't get recovery, you can.
Yep. So how do we cope with reactive abuse?
Oh, goodness.
I would suggest finding a therapist that specializes in narcissistic abuse or trauma. If you're unable to find a therapist that specializes in that, which there's a lot out there, I'm sure we can find.
Psychology. I think it's Psychology Today. I want to say Psychology Today. They have this awesome filter for finding a therapist.
Yeah.
Where you can search by their specialty in your area, what insurance they accept, all kinds of awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And you can find specialists, if you will.
Yes, because there are going to be some therapists out there that are not, they don't specialize in this type of thingy.
I love therapists, but
I do too.
But I have seen some therapists give people, because they weren't educated in this particular realm of recovery.
Right.
They have given people some advice you would give to normal people that weren't dealing with a drug addict or a narcissist or an alcoholic that is so far off base.
Yeah. Yeah. So just make sure you find somebody who specializes in something like this. Write down the experiences you have in a journal. If you feel like there's something that you're reacting to, or you feel like it feels weird, write it down, put it on paper. That can help you process some things easier, and also, circle back to see where this behavior is coming from. Recognize your reaction. Matt, you were telling me this earlier. Take a breath, tell yourself that it's valid. Say, I'm not abusive and I choose not to participate or fuel the fire. Like we said earlier, these reactions are typically involuntary. There are times that you just do it. Give yourself grace if you do it. But now that you have it in the back of your mind that it is reactive, it's easier to take a step back and be intentional on how you're going to react now, which could be not participating. It could be walking away, not necessarily freezing like I would do, because that did not get me anywhere either. But you can, just get away from the situation, and that'll help you.
Yeah, there's plenty of tactics you can use, but I think acknowledging what's going on in the moment, almost like an out of body experience. Like, okay, I can see what's happening right now. They're trying to get a reaction out of me. Even if I do give them one, I have to know that I don't need to sit here and beat myself up and feel like I'm the cause of this, or that I'm as bad as they are, because you're not. This isn't typical day-to-day behavior for you. It's okay. Now, do you make amends for this stuff? Do you apologize? Like, I've always been on the side that even when I've dealt with some really abusive people, even when I've been in these types of situations, I will always make right. Even if it's the coldest text message ever, like, I'm sorry for when I said XYZ yesterday. I'll just leave it at that, just because I feel better at night knowing that I've owned my part.
Yeah.
And just left it at that. But knowing damn full well that this person is toxic and let's just call them what they are. They're crazy.
Right.
And they're after you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And if it's, if they're still abusing, obviously there are different things that you can do too. Just empower yourself, educate. We're here to validate you and help you push forward.
Yeah, nothing easy about this topic, but we hope that it was helpful for people that have felt guilty whenever they have reacted, or they look at their part and say, well, I'm just as bad, or I'm just as abusive. Chances are that in a healthy relationship, you wouldn't be acting this way. If you look at your past, this really isn't who you are.
Yeah.
Don't think too incredibly hard about your behaviors when you were backed into a corner and bullied and you reacted. That's self-defense. That's, I think, all we would want listeners to know about this. But it's a tricky topic, man.
Yeah.
But hopefully it provided some sort of clarity.
Right.
Okay. All right. I think that's all we've got, right?
Yeah.
I swear there was something else.
No, I know. I'm thinking, I feel like I'm missing something on this. I wanted to say that I know that the reacting is justified, right? But I don't want it to be an excuse to react. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Don't throw a cinder block at your spouse and be like, well, Paige said it was cool.
Right.
Don't do that.
Like, oh, no, this is why I'm reacting to you.
Don't do
because
that.
That's just going to fuel the fire. The whole point of all of this, honestly, is for you to protect your peace. And if that means not reacting, that's more for you than it is the other person. And it's going to take practice, and it's going to take time, and it's going to feel really weird and uncomfortable at first, but it's important in these types of relationships to protect your peace and not fuel the fire.
And I would also like to say that if this is going on in your relationship, it is unlikely that this other person is you are going to be able to entice them to change. Mm-hmm. It's unlikely that something like, because I can see us already just getting a message that says like, okay, this is happening. How do I get them to stop? It's the wrong question.
Yep.
What do I need to do about it so I'm not in this situation anymore?
Right there.
Is the better question.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times people in these relationships are trying to make something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to make beauty out of just ugliness and torment and chaos. And if it were only up to you, you would have fixed it by now, but it's not. And I think that just like when it comes to this reactive abuse and we're looking, okay, so what's my responsibility here? My responsibility here and within the relationship, like I need to start looking at just my responsibility and stop thinking about what I can do to change that other person so this doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. Just acknowledge the fact that it is happening, that that's not okay, and that you have very few options now. One of them is leaving the situation. Mm-hmm. And it's usually the most common.
Right.
The most unlikely is that they actually acknowledge what they're doing, decide to get treatment, get into the recovery, validate you, take accountability, and you live happily ever after. Mm-hmm. Now, while it is possible, it is unlikely because it's not up to you. It's up to them. Yep. And it has to be this perfect storm for them of desperation, willingness, and opportunity that they can get sober, they want to get sober, and that they have the means to do it.
Yeah.
They can take off a month from work or go to treatment or whatever it might be. You know, it's just incredibly rare. But I see people who, they understand this is happening. They acknowledge this is what's going on, but they still want to know how they can fix it. Mm-hmm. It's not up to you to fix.
Yeah. Well, it's also, we've had people even recently say that they stopped reacting. And that even pissed the abuser off, or
damn right it will,
because it's going to piss them off. So I'm going to tell you this now: you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. But if you're going to not react to it, that's going to be more peaceful for you because you're not having to make it worse. Now they can say and do whatever they want, but by you not reacting is going to it's about you. It's not them. It's not about them. It's all about you. And it takes practice and it takes time and it feels really weird, but it's all about you and how you feel and how you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
It is going to piss people off.
I'd say 90% of the things that we talk about in this podcast are designed to help you protect your own peace. Mm-hmm. There are very few things that you can do to fix someone else. Yeah. It's just the fact of addiction. That's just how it works. Or even narcissistic abuse. Like these people are unlikely to change because of something that you've done. Yeah. You've already tried everything. Right. And the more you learn, we're teaching people these things so they can learn more about themselves, so they can become empowered to make decisions that are best for them. Yep. Which generally involves understanding that one day, like, I can't do this anymore with you. Mm-hmm. I love you. Doesn't mean I don't love you, but I cannot tolerate this behavior anymore.
Yeah. And sometimes standing up for yourself is not, reacting. It's taking a step back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that. I know I used to not understand that.
Oftentimes, self-growth, which is what we're doing here, self-growth, personal development. Personal development oftentimes means outgrowing a person. Mm-hmm. It means you outgrow somebody else. That happens in life. Yeah. At some point, you become more knowledgeable about certain things. You've discovered truths, and they're not up for it. You can't change them. Yep. But you can change what you do today. Yes. We hope that you've taken something from this that allows you to do that. Yeah. All right.
I know we went on, but I liked that.
Okay. I had
a lot of stuff to say in this episode.
I love that. I hope when I edit, there's more page clips than Matt clips.
Oh gosh.
That's my goal here. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Right. That's all we've got. Until next time, I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.